What up? It's your girl Motivation with V, and this is Get Real with V, where we're going to get real, we're going to get raw, and we're going to get down to the truth. And I am your host, Veronica Suazo. And on today's episode, we're going to be talking about toxic relationships, being the toxic partner. I'm so excited to talk about this topic because in order for me to be where I'm currently at right now in this mind state, I had to do a lot of work to get here. And that meant looking back on all of my relationships, all of my situationships, my dating life, and figuring out what did I do wrong. And I think the problem nowadays is that when we end a relationship, when a relationship is over, we don't look at what we do wrong. We look at what our partner did wrong, right? And 8 out of 10 times, your partner probably cheated, lied to you, was toxic, did a bunch of bullshit to you. And so it's because of that, you don't really take the time during your healing period to really look at yourself and the way that you showed up in that relationship. Like I said, I'm going to get real with y'all. I'm going to keep it real with you. I am the friend that's going to tell you what you need to hear. I literally had to be the one to look in the mirror and reflect for myself and for my own growth. So I'm hoping that I can do that for you because, some of us can't afford therapy. Some of us can't afford to have a mentor that can tell us that we're the ones that are doing things wrong. You know what I mean? So yes, I was in a few toxic relationships. And even after those toxic relationships, I was still in other toxic relationships too. But I had to really dig deep and look at those relationships and see, where did I go wrong? What did I do wrong? And I think that's the hardest part in humanity is being able to hold ourselves accountable and look at how we contributed to that relationship, how we contributed to the downfall of that relationship, especially when you're with a narcissist, especially when you're with someone that probably treated you like shit. And you're like, well, I'm not the problem. They're the problem, right? But we have to get real with ourselves. And amigas, unfortunately, a lot of us have toxic traits that we took on from our family, from our parents, that we are not aware of. I'll give you an example. Okay, this is my life. So we're going to put it on blast for y'all. I grew up in a household with two parents, mom and dad. It was not the healthiest relationship I ever witnessed in my life. I'm talking about emotional abuse, physical abuse, alcoholism, and the way that I saw that my mom and dad showed up in that relationship, I thought that was normal. So when I got into relationships with my partners, the way I would react when I would get upset, when I didn't know how to process my emotions, I would do exactly what I saw growing up, right? Because that's what I thought was normal. Like, you have to understand something, okay? When you grow up in a household, seeing how your parents are with each other, seeing how your family is with each other, it becomes normalized in your mind. And so when you get older and you become an adult and you get into relationships, friendships, you pretty much follow exactly what you saw growing up. And you don't even think about that. A lot of our beliefs, a lot of the way that we operate every day comes from the way we saw our parents operate. Take that in, seriously, because it's hard to really sit there and be like, damn, I'm really acting like my dad right now. I ain't shit. Damn, I'm really acting like my mom right now. I ain't shit. It's so hard to do that. And I think one of the harder things too is like realizing that your parents were also toxic. And the way that they handled certain situations, the way that they handled conflict, the way that they handled their emotions was not the best. And that's why a lot of us don't know how to apologize, don't know how to take accountability, don't know how to process our emotions, don't know how to just have open, honest conversation without getting defensive. And I'm not perfect. I still have my moments too, but I've been doing the work to remove those beliefs, remove what I've learned from my family. and to recreate new habits and to recreate the way that I am going to operate in my future relationship. Take a deep look in the mirror at yourself and reflect on the way you were raised, on the way conflict was dealt with in your household, because a lot of that goes into your relationships and that's how they become toxic. So how do we know that you're in a toxic relationship? And how do you know if you're the toxic one? These are important questions because sometimes when you're in the picture, you can't see what's in the picture. You get what I'm saying? Think about it. You have a picture at home in a frame. You're looking at it from the outside in. You can see who's in the picture. But when you're in the picture, you can't see what's in the picture. Catch my drift? Honestly, healthy relationships was not something mirrored in my family. I mean, even with my aunts and uncles. Love my family. I love y'all to death. But they're not the best influence on how to have a healthy relationship. Let's just be 100 here. And your family probably isn't either. But if you grew up in a household where a healthy relationship was mirrored, seriously, hold on to that because there's so many of us that didn't get that. And we are now fighting for our lives, trying to break generational trauma, trying to relearn how to be in healthy relationships, how to be healthy in general. If you really think about it, our parents were living on survival mode. My dad was working 2 jobs. Okay. So he was tired. When he came home, he just wanted to come home and have a beer and relax and watch TV and not be messed with. And my mom was busy raising us, bathing us, feeding us, taking us to school, taking us to our games, and also working on top of that. So you can see how much was put on them. They're both going through survival mode and they're trying their best to maneuver every day that comes. I mean, can you imagine having 2 children, 1 child, 4 children, working 2 jobs? That is tiring. 1 job is tiring enough. Like 1 job, a 9 to 5. Imagine 2, get out of here. Our parents are going through it. Like seriously, like if we really get deep and think about this, our parents went through it. They were living on survival mode. And I don't blame them for the way that they showed up in life. I don't. If anything, I feel for them. I hurt for them. I feel for them because I wish I could just hug my mom. I wish I could hug the little girl in her. And I'm sorry if I get emotional, but you know, as I'm doing all this work, this healing, like I literally look at my mom and dad and I'm just like, although I'm upset at the way that, you know, things turned out and the things that I learned that were negative, they were just 2 people trying to figure it out, trying to make sure there was a roof over our head. And they were doing the best they can with the resources they had because for them growing up, they didn't have too many resources and they probably did, but they weren't aware about them. Just like now, there's so many more resources available to our families, but it's just not out there enough for them to know. And so part of my healing was like just forgiving them and putting myself in their shoes and realizing that they were just doing the best that they could with what they had. But let me not sidetrack. That's gonna be another podcast episode where I talk about healing my daddy issues, and just family trauma in general. So back to toxic relationships. I was in one toxic relationship, and because of that toxic relationship, what I got from that, I went into the next relationship and pretty much mimicked what my ex did with me to the next person, not realizing how horrible it was. Like I'm talking about possessiveness, the isolating yourself from your friends, from your family, making your life all about them, of not being able to talk to nobody because they were so jealous, all of that. I went through all of it, emotional abuse, physical abuse. And so when I got out of that toxic relationship, it was hard. It was hard because I loved that person and I didn't have a lot of self-worth back then. So, of course, I stayed in that toxic relationship. But it was the other relationship that I was in where I had no way out. Like, this person made me look in the mirror and do the work. For those that don't know, I am bisexual. So yes, I like both men and women equally. Okay. There's no one or the other. I like both. And my first few relationships were with women. And now, recent years I've been dating men, but I'm open to both. But my point is that, this person that I was dating, I loved her and I just didn't know how to show up in the relationship. Like, I didn't trust her. She didn't trust me. We were so possessive over each other and I didn't know how to handle conflict. So I would yell. And when she wanted space, I didn't want to give her space. So I would like be all up in her face. Like, no, we're going to talk about this right now. Like, literally what I saw growing up from my dad is exactly what I was mimicking. And, she took it for a while and she was being patient with me. It finally got to a point where we both broke up and she moved on. She got into another relationship and I was heartbroken over it. And I was like, okay, I want to get back with her. Like, I love her. What the fuck? Like, why are we broken up? Like, we'll do better, So I tried and unfortunately she had moved on. She met someone and this person was giving her everything that I wasn't. I was toxic. Let's be real. I was fucking toxic. And so that breakup forced me to really look in the mirror and look at what I had been doing wrong. And of course, she had her moments too where she did things that were fucked up. And, I'm not the only one that fucked this relationship up. It was both of us. But it wasn't about pointing the finger at her. It was more of like looking in the mirror and holding myself accountable onto what did I do wrong in this relationship for it to end like this? Because I really thought we were going to get married. Like, I thought this person was like my forever. Like, life's a trip. I loved her so much that I was like, I have to let her go. I have to let her go. And I want her to be happy. I think that's the relationship where I learned what unconditional love is. It's loving somebody so much that you want to see them happy. And even if that's not with you. My mindset and the way I think now and the way I show up definitely stem from that. I'm not even joking. That moment really taught me so much about myself, about growth, about holding myself accountable. I really had to take a deep look and I was like, Beto, you were toxic. You didn't know how to deal with certain conflict. You didn't know how to hear her out. You didn't know how to listen. You didn't pay her any attention. How do you expect someone to want to be with you when you can't do those things? So I was like, damn, like, I never want to show up like this for anyone that I love. I'm like, this isn't love. Mind you, my daddy wounds didn't heal during those times. Like, that's recently. I didn't make the connections back then the way I'm making the connections now. But that was my starting point of not wanting to ever show up as a toxic partner. And my point is, like, you have to look at yourself and the relationship you're currently in, or maybe you're not in a relationship, and just look at the past relationships you've been in and stop pointing the finger at what he did or she did, or the way that they cheated or the way that they showed up in the relationship. And just for a second, sit back and think about, how did you show up? Did you listen? Did you truly put your ego to the side? Did you truly show up for them in the way they wanted to be loved? Did you respect them? When you guys got in arguments, did you call them a bitch? Did you call them out of their name? Or were you calm and listening and trying to hear them out? Because when I was thinking about that relationship, I was like, damn, like, I did not show up like I loved her. I showed up like I hated this girl. So of course she don't want to be with me. Like, it's a no-brainer. But really look at the way you're showing up at your partner. Are you criticizing them? Are you yelling at them? Are you belittling them? You got to look at those things because those things are important. And we all deserve to be respected. We all deserve to be treated with love. I learned that it's so important to be in a healthy relationship. You got to show with love for each other. When you argue, it should be an argument filled with love. I know that sounds crazy, but when you truly, genuinely love someone, you will never disrespect them. You will never put them in a place where they feel like, oh shit, like, am I really being disrespected right now? Like, that should never cross your mind. Never. You do not hurt the people that you love. You just don't. Will you do stupid shit here and there? Yeah, we all make mistakes. But you're not going to hurt them purposely. And if you do that, I really suggest doing therapy and figuring out what is it that is triggering you with your partner to belittle them, to talk down on them, to yell at them, to call them out their names. Because I can guarantee you there's something there. And for me, it was seeing the way that my dad was. Sorry, Pops. I hope you ain't watching this. But if you are, this is the reality. This is the raw truth right here. This is real. This is why it's Get Real with V, because I'm literally telling you what I learned about myself, what I learned about my journey. But yeah, you really need to look at yourself, look at the relationship you're in, look at the past relationships. And when it comes to healing and being by yourself, and this is why it's so important to be alone for a while, is to be able to recognize where you showed up wrong, where you didn't show up the way you could have for your partner, and going into the next relationship or whenever you do, to show up better not only for them but for yourself. It's time. We're grown adults. It's time to unlearn these ugly ass traits that we got from our family. It's not going to do you any justice, I promise you, because guess what? You're just going to be stuck in that same cycle. And I know you're tired of it. I got tired of it. And that's why I'm making it my mission to spread what I know. Because I want you to succeed. I want you to have the best life you can imagine possible. Our parents did not migrate here for us to bullshit. Our parents did not migrate here for us to be miserable, for us not to be the best versions of ourselves. We owe it not only to them, but to us to show up every day as the best version of ourselves. And that's why it's important to know when you're the toxic one, to look back and really dissect, what could I have done better? How could I have shown up better? Accountability is the sexiest thing you can ever do. You know, I thought six packs were sexy. No. Accountability is the sexiest thing a human being can do. A man or woman that can own up to their shit and genuinely apologize and genuinely just be like, damn, I fucked up, but here's how I'm going to fix it moving forward. And then they do. Girl, take my panties. Kitty. But yeah, I just want to keep it real with y'all. And it's so important to really look at the way you were raised, your family dynamic, where you learned those behaviors, because they were learned. Those behaviors that you have, those toxic traits, they were learned. But guess what? You can unlearn them and you can teach yourself something new. You can create new habits. You can create new beliefs. You can recreate your mindset. You can recreate yourself. But you have to do the work. You have to sit with yourself and really hold yourself accountable and do the work. Until then, you're always going to be the toxic one. You're always going to overreact. You're always going to yell. You're always going to belittle. You're always going to be in toxic relationships. And it's never going to end. It's going to continue the cycle. And then guess what? You're going to have children. And then your children are going to see that. And then guess what? They're going to do it too. And then it's just like this cycle. That's why it's called generational trauma. We're trying to stop that. We're trying to be the better generation. It starts with us. I mean, it sucks, right? Like, I saw a meme that said, I just wish our parents passed down generational wealth and not generational trauma. I felt that in my soul. But guess what? They didn't. And for those that did, shit, good for you. But it's literally our job right now to break these generational traumas and to change the narrative to be better human beings. I mean, you see everything going on in this world. Do you really think that they need more evil? No. We need more light. We need more love. We need to show up. You can't expect to be in a healthy relationship when you're not healthy. You cannot expect to be in a relationship that's healthy when you're not healthy. And I don't mean physically, I mean mentally, spiritually, emotionally. It starts with you. It starts with you. And you know what? Some of you are going to watch this and feel empowered and inspired and then go back to what you were doing. I encourage you, please do the work. Because I promise you, when you do the work, your life is going to change. And I'm telling you that from someone who was the toxic one. I'm telling you that from someone who was in toxic relationships. I had to do the work. That was the hardest part. You know how hard it is to lose somebody you love and realize that you're not shit? It's hard as fuck. But through that pain is where I grew as a person. And letting go of her was one of the strongest things I've ever done. Because I loved her so much, I set her free. I said, you know what? I'm not the best thing for you right now, but this person is clearly giving you exactly what you've been wanting. So be happy because I want to see you happy. And I do still want to see her happy. I still got love for her. And, through the years, I changed. I got better. I became a better person. I went back to school. I completely transformed. And the person that I was back then, nothing compared to now. I'm telling you, like, the people that know me, that knew me back in the day, like, I'm not the same person. And I'm so proud to say that. I am so proud to say that I've changed. I've evolved. I am never going back there either. Once you know about your family trauma and how those things affected you and your relationships and you as a person growing up, you'll never go back. Why would you? You're going to be the one to make the changes. And I am the black sheep. I am. Why? Because I question everything. I'm the one. You can ask my family. When I come over, I'm the one that's like, well, are you sure you should be doing this? And it's probably annoying, and I'm sorry, but how else are you going to grow? A lot of you are surrounded by people that just tell you what you want to hear and not what you need to hear. And that is the problem. It's so important to be surrounded by people that keep it real with you. If you're being toxic, girl, I'm going to tell you. If you're in a toxic relationship, girl, I'm going to tell you. Whether you decide to stay in that relationship or not, that's up to you. That's between you and God. I don't judge at all. I respect people's decisions. I respect people's lives because at the end of the day, it's your life. It's not mine. And I can't force you to change. I can't force you to do the work. I can't force you to see what I'm seeing. I can't force you to even listen to what I'm saying. All I can do and hope and pray is that you take a little bit of what I'm saying and you put in the work. You start somewhere. You plant the seed for yourself. Because the whole point of this podcast is for you to get real with yourself and to finally put yourself first and get the life that you deserve. To be the person you've always wanted to be. To have those goals you always dreamed of. And the only way you're going to get there is by reflecting, by healing. And yes, healing is linear. You're going to constantly be healing. It's never over. And that's the beautiful thing of life. It's so beautiful. And I can say, I'm not perfect, but I am not going to be in a toxic relationship anytime soon. I'm done with that. Mind you, the last relationship I was in, I don't even think that was toxic. Like, I think that was healthy. Of course, we had some things that were toxic, but nothing compared to the toxic relationships I was in years ago. So there's levels to toxicity, okay? Like there's the extreme, which you usually deal with when you're like in high school, maybe early 20s, mid 20s, where your partner doesn't know how to deal with conflict, doesn't know how to listen, belittles you, talks down on you, doesn't listen to you emotionally. And that stems from the way they were raised and grew up in their household. And so unfortunately, a lot of us growing up weren't listened to. And when there was conflict in the household, what would happen? You'd stop talking to your parents for a couple days. And then a couple days later, they're like, ¿Tienes hambre? Okay. And then you guys talk like nothing happened. So think about that. Put two and two together. There were so many times where me and my brother got into it at the house when we were younger. And we never knew how to talk to each other about our arguments. And we would literally lock ourselves in our room and we wouldn't talk for days. And then we would have to see each other because we live in the same household. And then we would just be like, like nothing ever happened. And we would never talk about it. So you have to think about those things. Those things were learned. Like that's how you dealt with conflict. So when you get into relationships and you guys get into this altercation, the important thing is to talk things out and to find solutions and to hear each other and to compromise with each other. But because you were raised with your sibling or your family to have these conflicts and then never talk about it and just shrug it under the rug, then you get into these relationships and then you do the same. So you just like, I need space. You disappear and it's days that go by and then you come back and you go drinking and you don't even talk about what happened that night. And then you just shrug it under the rug because you want to be happy. And then what ends up happening, either that night or the next time, it's going to come out. And that's how resentment builds. It's when you don't talk about things, when you don't close the loop. So these are things you really got to look at, like in your life. What did you learn growing up? What did you think was okay to do that's not okay to do right now? So I'm telling you, like, emotional intelligence was not shared with us. We did not grow up with any emotional intelligence at all. Unfortunately, our parents did not have emotional intelligence. But that's why I'm doing this podcast, because it's so important for us as the next generation to share this type of knowledge with each other. Because, like I said, the world is already against us. I mean, especially me as a bisexual Latina first gen woman, the odds are against me. But I ain't gonna let that bring me down. I'm gonna keep pushing. I'm gonna keep being the best version of myself. I'm gonna keep striving for more. And I'm gonna get more. Because I refuse to let external things, this society, people, to dictate what I do with my life, who I'm gonna be. I refuse. It's important for me to be the one to share my identity. It's important for me to be the one to tell myself who I'm going to be. Nobody else is going to tell me nothing. Sorry. Unless it's constructive feedback and it's for my growth and my well-being. Like, I'm really good with taking constructive feedback. That was something I had to learn too, because I was not good at that. But yeah, so take a deep look. Are you the toxic one? ¿Eres la tóxica? ¿O eres en una relación tóxica? Only one way to find out. And that's literally doing the work. Looking at how you're showing up. Do you trust your partner? Do you listen to them? Do you love them in their love language? Do you genuinely show up with love? Do you talk to them with love? So, yeah, I'm excited because I am going to have a couple that I'm interviewing who have literally gone through it. Like, they went through the toxic little cycle. Not as toxic as maybe what I've gone through, but a little bit of toxic in the beginning, and to see how their relationship has blossomed and how they've done the work. They're doing therapy. They're really holding themselves accountable, and they're truly showing up for each other. I am so proud of this couple, and I'm so excited to have them on this podcast. to share their journey with you, because I know there's going to be so many couples out there and just people in general that will relate and will hopefully get some sort of nuggets out of it for their future relationships or their current relationships. Yeah. So to end this episode, I have a question that was sent to me, and let's read it, shall we? And don't forget, if you have questions, send them in ahead of time, and I promise I will answer them on here. So somebody asked, how can you identify what kind of attachment issues one has? Well, I will say this. I'm not going to go into the type of attachment issues that there are, because I actually want to do a separate episode for this. First of all, actually, I never knew what the hell attachment was. I didn't even know that was a thing until I started school and I learned about attachment theory. It's a real thing. Attachment starts when you are in the womb of the mother. That's when the attachment begins for the child. So first and foremost, if you grew up in a household in the beginning of your years without that love and bond from your mom and dad, your attachment issues are definitely most likely fearful, distant, and avoidant. The best attachment style to have is a secure attachment, which means you're secure with yourself. Like you genuinely feel so confident and secure. But how can you identify it? I think a lot of people don't know what attachment issues are. And I was one of them. I just figured out what it is. I've always heard about it, but never really knew too much about it. I would definitely say start with Googling it, look it up, look up attachment issues, and you'll see that there's 4 of them. And you probably align with all of them, because for me, I felt like I was all of them at some point in my life. It had a lot to do with the way I was raised and the way that I saw my parents interact with each other and operate in their relationship. And also just not having my dad around for years. So I always was missing that relationship with him, that bond with him. And that created my attachment issues in my relationships, which is why I was always searching for love and seeking for it. But I would definitely say, Google it. And I strongly suggest going to therapy and talking that out with a therapist who is licensed and can really talk it through with you and educate you more on it and help you understand those attachment issues and how you can get from there to a secure attachment, because it's possible. That's the beautiful thing about it, is you can be scared of rejection, you can be scared of commitment, you can be scared of communicating or voicing how you feel. Maybe you have trust issues, but all of that can easily be worked on and be fixed, and you can work at actually having a secure attachment with yourself. That's why I think self-love is so important, because when you love yourself so much, you will stop with the bullshit. You will stop dating people that treat you like shit. You will start setting boundaries, and you will show up powerfully. You will actually have trust for your partners. But yeah, so that's my answer. Thank you so much for hearing me out, for listening to me and tuning in. I appreciate y'all so much, for real. I'm truly enjoying this podcast series, and I'm so excited for you guys to see and hear so many more stories, because I promise you it's going to be. And I hope that you guys truly get something from this, because that's why I'm doing this. So stay tuned, because on the next episode, on February 17th, we will have the couple that I was talking about. It'll be fun. Have a good one, you guys. Love y'all.